Hello, everybody. Welcome to the National Parents Union Nightly Restorative Check-In. As always, I am your host, Marisol Quevedo Rerucha. I am the proud wife to Daniel. I am the mother to Camerina, who will be 27 years old this year, Emilia, who will be 26, Sofia, who will turn 16, and I am the proud daughter to Irma Castro and Abraham Quevedo, who very fortunately are still in this world, and I'm able to connect with them. And I am also the grandmother to Isabela Luna, who is 4 years old, Cynthia Ileana, who will be a year old in 15 days, and Lorenzo Martin, who will be a month old in 15 days. And I am the very proud granddaughter to Camerina Rodriguez Castro from Gomez Palacio, Durango, Alejandro Castro from San Jose del Cabo, Baja California. Ooh, I don't know, can you hear my sounds going? I'll tell you the story of the sounds. I am also the granddaughter to Carmen Bedoya Quevedo and Francisco Quevedo, both from Sonora. I don't know if you heard. If you didn't, I have a clock. I have a one of those grandfather clocks. It was actually my grandmother's, my abuela's, Carmen Rodriguez Castro. And that clock used to drive me crazy because she would have it in her house and you could hear, and then like the bell, like it goes off every half hour, and then at the hour it does the chimes for the hour. So, depending on the time, it could be 1, it could be 12 bings that you hear, the ringing. It would drive me crazy. So I would go to her house and I would open the door and I would stop the pendulum from swinging so that it wouldn't go off while I was there. And she would get so upset with me. So she was like, when I die, you are getting this clock. Like, you are getting this clock. So I have the clock. I've had it. I think I got it when we moved into this house. So almost 20 years ago. And my grandmother, my abuelita, passed away when I was 16. So what is that? Almost 31 years ago. She passed. So anyway, the clock had just been sitting there. We didn't have it on. And yesterday, Luna, my granddaughter who does school here, she'll be 5 in May. She grabbed me and she was like, come with me. And I'd been doing something. I said, hold on, let me just finish this. She was like, come with me. So she grabbed me by the hand and she took me to the clock, which is right outside the door of my office. And she was just like, she pointed at it. And I was like, oh, like, should we turn it? I don't know if she's ever seen a grandfather clock before. And again, it's a little one. It's on the wall. But it was so beautiful because this little girl always wants to be in the mix of everything. And she just stood there and watched me. So we set the time and the bells kept going off. Like, I think we went almost through the whole clock. So we would have to wait, let it ring. And then I wound it up, and she just was there so present. And I can't help but think that, that my grandmother, that my abuela prompted her to turn that on. And it was such a beautiful moment because her behavior was so out of character for her. But she was just so loving, so lovingly wanted that clock to be turned on. And I tell you that story as I do my introduction because I always introduce myself in that way as a reminder that the voice that you hear, right? It's not just my voice. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about, me being heard. It's about the divine work that I meant to do in this world, and the divine work of my ancestral line, and the divine work of the ancestral line that came before me, that is with me now, and that will come after me. And that's so much bigger than I am. And so when I ground myself in saying their names, and sometimes, you walk into a room and it's not, you don't have that opportunity, but just even saying their names to myself, reminding me who I am and why I am, it reminds me of a couple of things. One, to never leave a room without having said what I believe I need to say, especially if I'm there for our kids, doing work for our children in education. And also, making sure that I bring the best of myself into the spaces that I enter. So thank you for allowing me to share that story. We're going to do now our breathing technique, which we do every single night that Dr. Anjali shared with us on our first show about a year ago, almost a year ago. And it's the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So I'll count you down as you're breathing. So we start with a count to 4, inhale, and then we hold for 7, and then we release for 8. And we do this 4 times. And so I set the timer and I will guide you through it. So all you have to do is just sit there and take this moment to breathe. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. If you could please put your feet firmly on the ground. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, put your hands gently on your lap. Take a regular breath in and out. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we do that technique to ground us and to help us focus and to help us transition into our different activities. It's also very relaxing. So with that, I'm going to bring our guest in for tonight, and I am so happy to have my dear friend, John Monteleone, join us. Let me move me over. Hello, my friend.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm so happy to see you. So I got to see you twice today.
I know.
Which makes me very happy. And we, this morning I realized that the last time we were physically together was a year ago.
To the day, almost. Yes.
Which is a trip and a blessing that you were one of the last people that I saw before we went on lockdown. So before we get into our convo, please introduce yourself and share anything that you would like. So you can talk about your family, your work, who you are, who you're not, what you love, what you don't, anything that you would like.
Yeah, so John Monteleone, lifelong educator. I've been a teacher, a coach, a mentor, assistant principal, assistant superintendent. I'm currently a proud principal again in the city that I grew up, in the school district that I graduated from. Just finding my purpose and being back in my hometown and doing that good work is just incredible feeling. Out of all those titles, the most important titles that I carry are the son of Lynette and Joseph Monteleone, and the father of 2 beautiful girls, Rochelle and Antonia Monteleone. And I have to, Madi, you always do such a wonderful job of honoring your ancestors. And because of that, I find myself, I lost my mom in 2011. And my dad is 82. And I've never done this before. I've always been John Monteleone. But because of how passionate you are about honoring your ancestors, I find myself signing documents and using my middle name, Joseph, which is after my father. So the importance of that, I think a lot of it is, like I said, what I'm learning from you, but also the fact that he's 82, and I'm trying to carry on his legacy because he's given me a lot, but the most important thing that he's given me is his name. And I'm just honored to carry that forward. But thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this since we talked in January, December is when you reached out to me. It's been a while, but I've had I've had this circled on my calendar because I so adore you in the work that you do. And every time I walk away from you, I'm smarter, I'm more pure, and I just feel better as a person.
John, you're also on our Dad to Dad show. Can you talk about that and what you do on Dad to Dad and just like the experience of it? Because I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and I thank you for that too. So I think it was around March. I remember distinctly laying on my couch, down a rabbit hole on Netflix during the lockdown that we had here in Ohio and just across the country. And Tim reached out to me and said, "Hey, like we have a mutual friend in common, Marty. We're thinking about starting this show called Dad to Dad. Just talk about experiences from fathers and how they support." And he said she said to reach out to you because you were a wonderful father. And I'm like, oh my God, like I hope to think that I am, and I try to be every day. And so it first started out just three of us: Tim Langdon, Jose Villarreal, and myself. The opportunity was there to bring in Michael Scott, who is a very dear friend of mine, and who also works with me here in Lorain City Schools, just advocating for children on a daily basis. And he just brings a very unique perspective. So yes, just it's a beautiful experience. We're going on a year, I think next month, and it's therapeutic. I learned so much from them as dads, and we're all in different journeys as fathers. And I've had an opportunity to meet incredible dads during guest appearances. Kind of like any network that you kind of join, you have those lifelong friendships, and Tim and Jose and Mike are family to me now. So, yeah.
I think it's so beautiful too and all of you are over, I would say you're all over your 35, right?
Yes. I think Mike might be the youngest at 42.
Okay, so you're all in your 40s. Mm-hmm. You're all men in your 40s who are raising their kids, and I think that like our generation. So I'll be 47 this year. So our generation, I think we were part of that change of from our parents, right? Of like the way that we loved our kids, I think was a little bit different. Was maybe not with as much harshness and with every right, right? But there was just a difference. And I think it's so beautiful though, because, I know I grew up with, and I think it was more societal of like gender norms, and, that the mothers do, and the mothers do, and the mothers do, and the fathers do. And so to have this group of men that you can connect with and talk about parenting in a very authentic way and to be vulnerable with. And that is what I think is so beautiful about the times that we're living in, is that the offering and the invitation to authenticity, it's not something new anymore. It's not something nouveau. We're making that change in our society to really talk and see each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, gender roles definitely in my family. Like my mom, standard housewife, worked. My dad brought home the bacon, and did the dad thing. I think where I was fortunate is, we're Italian, and my father, very affectionate man, always has been. And I think that for me was a blessing, because I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic community, and it was more machismo for the fathers and sons, like relationships. And my father and my relationship was like always hugging, kissing on the cheek. And I remember being a ninth grader and at an award ceremony in the middle of a cafeteria of hundreds of people, and getting, a principal's award or something like that, and going back to the table where we were all sitting and, giving my dad a hug and a kiss. And I just remember distinctly, like, people just be like, because it just wasn't a thing back then. But it's all that I knew. And I'm so glad that he passed that love and affection onto me. And I was able to carry that forward onto my kids. And, I carry that with me just as a school principal. Like, I know it sounds crazy, like, especially in today's day and age, but, I love giving kids hugs in the morning. I love, that pat on the shoulder, just that physical touch. and everything is so weird, now, not being able to do that, but it's a beautiful thing. And I think that expression of love that we have on dad to dad for each other, which Jose coins the bubble of love. And there's so much power, in telling another man that, not being afraid to say, hey, I love you. You know what I mean? I care about you. How are you doing? Picking up the phone and just, having those conversations.
Have you always had that kind of a relationship with another man outside of your father?
Yeah, I like my friends, like I've always been, growing up, it was always like the joke, John's the emotional one, so like, but yeah, I've never been afraid to tell my friends like, hey, I love you, I've been thinking about you, or just reach out to them. And, the more touchy feely, it's not always reciprocated. A lot of my friends like, hey, I'm doing good. Like, you know what I mean? Or like, say some other weird off the wall stuff. But I'm not afraid of that expression. And I think it's important to just let people know how you feel. Like, even sometimes if it's with a shaky voice.
I love that. I love that, because I think that's something that I always like. I always want people to know how I feel, in the good and the bad. And mostly it's good, because I don't have a lot of bad things that happen, but when they do, like, I always want it to handle it. But to also like just to be of that mind of always letting somebody know how you feel about them. And Mr. Tim, your homeboy,
I see that. I love you too, Tim.
There's nothing you can do about it. What would you want to do about it but love him back, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
What would you want to do about it but receive that love and share it? So, John, you're a father of girls, though.
Yes.
And so did you also have sisters?
I did. Yeah. I have one sister, matter of fact, that was calling me just that was in the broadcast room and said, hey, sissy, can I call you back at 9? Yeah.
And so how is it like, just that relationship with your girls?
I learned so much from my sister. So my sister is the closest to me in age. So as the progression of kids left the house, my sister was the last one to leave the house. And like I was a latchkey kid until my sister came home from school. But we would always spend time together. I was always a mama's boy. So being around women was just so natural. And just having those long walks with my sister to the park, to the store, it's just, she molded me into the man that I am, and she always was really good. Her and my mom were always good about giving me the woman's perspective. And that is something that has, really helped me with my girls as a father. Watching my sister grow up, watching my sister, she dealt with a food and eating disorder. She dealt with depression growing up. She had a pretty rough marriage. Her first marriage was pretty rough. All of these life-changing events happened in my early teens, into my late teens. So, and my mom always struggled with her weight. I remember, every time we would go to like a quick store or any type of store, this is like 80s and 90s, so I don't know if many people can even reference this, but those little buzz pills those little energy pills that would just pop off, and she would take those to try to like curve her eating. And that, I don't know if you want to call it trauma or, but it's always stuck with me. And, I've had discussions, with my significant others, with the girls that I dated, definitely with my daughters. Like, it's always like just that self-image of being a woman. And I've always wanted to reinforce and ensure like my girls that, you're perfect the way you are. Don't feel comfortable in your own skin. Don't worry about how others perceive you. watch who you surround yourself with. Your environment is very important. Don't operate out of fear of what others think. Those sorts of things lent to, me parenting my girls, watching the struggles of my sister and my mom.
What a blessing to have the insight that your mom and your sister gave you. I think to have the relationship, but to have the insight, to understand like their vulnerabilities, to understand sharing that, like sharing the fact that you struggle with your weight, like just even saying that is something that for a lot of people, not just women, but a lot of people, is a heavy thing to share. And to have that insight, I think, is really a gift. And how the way that you raised your daughters, and it's kind of hard to say, right? Because you don't know any other way. But do you think that there are things that you can point to in your daughters that impacted them for this way of being, of talking to them about being a woman and talking to them about their value and their worth, regardless of their looks, outside of their looks, right? Like just their worth and their value. Is there anything that you can point to that you think you had an impact on in their way of being?
I think their overall drive and self-confidence, and something else that I learned from my sister. So when big box Walmart first came to our community, my sister worked there, and she first started on the cashier, but she quickly escalated into the office and doing the clerical work, and she was in charge of tracking. God, what was the word that they would call it? Madi, it's waste, like how waste is, like, are things being waste? Are, like what's, and she reduced the waste of that store like by 60% within like the first 18 months on the job. But so she was a woman in a leadership role in a male dominated department. And I remember the struggles that she would go through of being a woman in a leadership role, and all of the obstacles and barriers and the comments and just the, male chauvinist type just stuff that she dealt with. And I use that experience to really educate my girls, because both of my girls are natural born leaders. And, passing on those three important lessons that I learned from my mom, like, be careful of your environment, surround yourself with good people, be confident in what you do, like don't operate out of fear of what other people think, and truly just be yourself. Those are the things that I pass on to my daughters. And most recently I had a conversation with Antonia, because there was a mental health committee that she wanted to join at Ohio State, and she wasn't sure she wanted to apply because, everybody in her cohort that was applying was all males. And I said, Antonia, like, you need to be part of this conversation. Like, you have a lot, like, her sister dealt with mental health. My daughter dealt with, Antonia herself dealt with a little bit of depression. And so, like, that's where her passion is at. And, we had that conversation because, I remember when Antonia was dealing with depression at the time, I read a stat that 20% of teenagers deal with depression. 50% of those 20% drop out of school. And I remember having that conversation with Antonia, like, that self-awareness, that intrapersonal reflection of like, this is what I'm dealing with, but it's not going to be a barrier to me. Like, so yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I feel like I'm rambling, but
you're not rambling at all.
Yeah. So like, just those conversations with my girls, I felt like have had an impact on them, both professionally and personally.
Well, and I think just like you said, like you talked about their confidence, their drive and their self-confidence, and the fact that Antonia looks at something around health and says like, yes, my voice needs to be in that. That right there is that message and that lesson that your mom shared with you. And I think probably drilled into you, right? Like it's in your DNA, it's in your blood. And I think also like the last part of that lesson, the being yourself. I think as a parent, right? Like I just think of myself, like when did I figure out who I was to know to be myself? like when did that, because it's like that journey to me is always never ending. That's one of those lifelong journeys, and I do think it's so important for us as parents to support our kids in their journey of figuring out who they are.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because it's, for me, it's been do as I say, not as I do, because it hasn't been until, I want to say, maybe the last 4 years that I find myself not trying to be true to my authentic self, because I've always been trying to be that person that I thought other people thought I should be. And then also trying to replicate what I thought they wanted to see, or replicate what I thought that they thought was a successful person or the right attitude. And it hasn't been till like these last 4 years, and a lot of money on therapy and counseling, where I'm starting to move away from that, and just really presenting my genuine self is what I truly have been working on in almost every setting, just being myself, and not what I think somebody thinks I should be doing or saying.
What was the that trigger for you 4 years ago that pushed you into that work?
Yeah, so I actually just shared this on Dad for Dad on Monday. I was at a conference, and somebody was speaking, and they referenced it as almost like a personality like conflict, and it came from, like, I think it came from like a monk thinking, where and they said, like, it's not who you think you are, and not what somebody else thinks you are. It's when you're trying to be what you think they think you should be. Right. So think about that. Like, so it's not like who I think I should be or who you think I should be. It's what I think you think I should be.
Yeah.
And it's like that identity crisis. Yeah. And like when I listened to that, it was like, when you're sitting at church and you think that the priest is talking to you. And I was like, oh my God, that's me. That's me to a T. Like, I am so worried about what I think other people think of me, that I'm not even sure, like, did I take that job because I wanted that job? Did I go on that trip because I wanted to go on that trip? Did we choose this place for dinner because that's where I thought I wanted to eat? Like,
you're like, am I wearing these socks because these are the
socks? Yeah, like, is it? Yeah, like, really? Did I see this on my Pinterest? Like, and now I, thought that this matched. Like literally, I was like, oh my God, and it was in that moment that I was like, I have to start thinking, like, am I really serving the things that I want to do? And it really changed. Like, the reason I'm a principal now in Lorain is part of that thinking, because, like, I became assistant superintendent because, that was the title that I thought everybody felt like I should be going for. And then, 2 years as an assistant superintendent, I get headhunted to be a superintendent. And I'm like, yeah, I should be superintendent. That's the title that I want. And then 2 years into that superintendency, I'm probably the most miserable professionally that I've ever been. Like, and it's that Dharma, right? Like, so if you know anything about Dharma, there's the 4 things, right? So it's what you're good at, serving others, loving what you do, and getting paid for it, right? So here I am in Cleveland. I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. I'm still serving others. I'm still operating at a pretty high proficient level, but I did not love the work that I was doing. And I was like, oh my God, like, I need to go home. Like I need to be in Lorraine because and I did not know it, but I was already here. I spent the first 16 years of my career here.
Mhm.
And while I was here, I didn't even know it. I had my purpose. My purpose was already here. And I didn't even realize it because I was doing what I thought other people thought I should be doing. You know, that destination, you know, addiction, like got to have the next job. You know what I mean? Got to eat at the next best place. Got to date the next girl because she's the prettiest. Like it's that whole destination addiction and not really just realizing that, like, you know what, where I'm at is where I'm supposed to be. And my mom always used to tell me that. And it took me years to find the wisdom in those words is you're where you're supposed to be. Like good or bad, you're where you're supposed to be. And that's hard to hear because I went through a divorce, you know, and during that divorce, I was sleeping on my brother's couch. And if you would have told me that that's where I was supposed to be, I would have thought you would have lost your mind because I'm like, no, like, you know, I can't make rent. I can barely make my car. You know what I mean? Like, I'm living on my brother's couch. Like, I don't know when I'm going to have enough money to get my next place where my daughters can come see me, not at their uncle's house. And if you would have told me that I was supposed to be there, I wouldn't. There's no way. But you know what? It was probably the most marvelous experience of my life because it molded me into who I am now, and like everything that I have around me that I've built that is now in my name, solely in my name. I just appreciate it so much more. And I appreciate the journey and just really at peace, both personally and professionally.
I think
And I don't think I've ever shared that story publicly, other than the people that know me don't know anything like about that. So I don't know what it is about you, Mari, that pulls this out of me, but you know.
Well, you already know. You already know. I'm here for you. I think what's really beautiful though, John, is that you're on the other side, right?
Yeah.
I recognize where like you're on the two sides of the mountain, but that getting through the mountain, like that mountain. What so thinking about it, you were supposed to be on that couch. You were supposed to go through that divorce. Which was probably, I'm just gonna get, it may have been one of the darkest times of your life.
Oh yeah, like a death.
And now you've rebuilt, right? And you have things. What were those lessons? What were the things that you learned about yourself and you've learned about life and humanity in that time?
From a professional standpoint, I learned that it's more about the calling than it is the title. And I was in a very motivated for the wrong reasons type attitude. Like I thought that bringing more pride to who I was as a professional would, and this is very immature thinking, but I thought that like the fact that my daughters could say like, oh, my dad's a superintendent or my dad's assistant superintendent, that would bring more pride to them. And it never did. It never did. You know, like my daughter couldn't tell you like exactly, you know, what my title was ever. So I learned that from a professional standpoint. As a father, and as a husband, my priorities were skewed. Because while I was working 16-hour days chasing a title because I thought that those titles would make other people proud, I thought that those titles is, you know, what my father would want from me, what my mother would want from me. I lost sight of being a good husband. I lost sight of being, I don't know if I want to use the word engaged because I was always an engaged father. I think present is a better word because I was there physically, but I wasn't always there mentally. I learned that, my ex-wife deserved so much better. she's such a beautiful person. And the stress that I put on the relationship for many reasons, which ended to, the breakdown and the divorce. So, anytime that I go into a relationship, it's with a totally different lens, with a totally different priority. So those experiences, and what I think what I still worry about, and I've shared this with you many times, is, because of that experience of divorce, what have I strapped my daughters with that are going to affect their future relationships? And I don't feel like I talk about that enough with them. And I think I need to be a little bit more intentional in having those conversations, to just see like what's their perspective, like how do they feel, what are things that they've always wanted to say but never felt like they had the right or place to say those things. Yeah.
I feel like a heaviness and a sadness in your voice when you talk about that time, and what happened. And what I want to invite
I'm ashamed of that time. Yeah. When I reflect upon it, I get emotional because that's not who my mother and my sister raised. They didn't raise that young man. And I lost my way, for a bunch of reasons. But yeah, I'm not proud of the person. I know I needed to go through that journey. I know I learned many lessons from it. But it's a hard time to recollect because, quite frankly, I'm embarrassed of, there's not many things that you do in life where you stand in front of God, your family, and friends, and you make a commitment and you make a promise, and you don't fulfill that commitment and that promise. And that's tough to deal with. It's hard to grapple with that I failed at such a, big level, and probably one of the most important things so while I'm out there trying to be successful, in this realm, I'm failing at the most important job that I was blessed to have, and that I stood in front of the Lord and made a commitment to be, and let the most important people down in my life because I thought that, this professional avenue is what was going to define who I was. Like I said, such immature thinking in retrospect.
But it's very, so I want to share with you, Hakeem Alaji is my best friend, my comadre, my sister's dad. And he said something that will stay with me for the rest of my life. And that is, he's a practicing Muslim. And she and I were doing our life vision board thing a couple of years ago. And he told her the only goal he ever has is to practice loving kindness and nonviolence towards himself and others. Mm. And the shame and embarrassment and like those feelings are very violent to allow to continue. And I want to invite you to think about honoring that person that you were, because you had to go through that experience to be who you are now and to have the understanding that you have now. So you had to be there to be here. And just like, there's that saying that we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? that we stand on like Antonia and your other, what's your other daughter's name again?
Rochelle.
And Rochelle, I'm sorry. And Rochelle and your grandkids, Rochelle's kids, right? They're standing on your shoulders, and you are a giant. And I just, that person that you were, and also, so let me not go too far from this. Your divine light and your goodness has always been there. That's how you were born. So even though you made these human decisions, even though your what's that word? Not your perspective, but your priorities right? Your priorities were not what your heart, you realize now what they were meant to be. They were your priorities at the time, and you had to go through that to appreciate something different in where you are now. And I think if you can offer love and forgiveness and some loving kindness to John from however many years ago, and just like give him some love and some gratitude, because he was doing the best he was doing the best he thought he could. He was.
Yeah. And I was. I mean, you know, I've spent a lot of hours in therapy discussing, you know, this very theme. Like, I'm first generation college graduate. I'm the youngest of 13. Like, we grew up in poverty. We suffered from food insecurities. So that constant drive to be successful at my job, because I mean, let's be 100% real. With the new title came more money. Mm-hmm. With more money came more security for me. The farther I got away from the John that didn't eat on Thursdays because it was prime rib Wednesday at where my parents worked, you know? Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I thought it was good intentions. But at the end of the day, like, I do owe that John some self-care, some self-love, because I think if you don't take the time to practice self-care and self-love, then you're unconsciously telling yourself you're not worthy of it. And I know I'm worthy of it, but it's hard for me not to want to go kick that John, you know, in the butt and say, come on, you know, get it together, have that conversation, like shake him a little bit.
His butt got kicked. Life kicked him in the butt, which is what has allowed you to evolve. Like, his butt got kicked. It happened.
For sure.
You don't have to worry about kicking his butt. Life already happened for you. You know, like, it happened. But in order for you to appreciate and see the world the way you do now, and to be the dad that you are now, you had to be that dad. And if you think about like the evolutionary steps, right? It makes sense. It makes sense. And I just hope that you can just be kind to the thought of who you were. And I wanted to hit on something, and that is, you know, you talked about, also you shared your concern of the impact that your divorce and that time has on your daughters. And so one of the offerings I want to make to you is that you do not control the world. And because you don't control the world, you don't control your children's journey. And because we are all human beings, John, like we're human, so we're gonna all hurt each other. And the people that we're closest to, the ones that we spend the time with the most, they're the ones that we're gonna hurt the biggest, because they're the ones that are in our zone of opportunity to love and to hurt. And I think it's just a reality, like, as a parent, like, and just that relationship, you're gonna mess up your kids. Mm-hmm. You're going to have some really good reason to blame you for something, and it could absolutely probably is legit. But this is their journey, which was not your journey. Your journey was very different. So part of the journey was, you know, and for Rochelle to have you as a dad, right? Like that's part of her journey. And part of Antonia's journey was to have divorced parents. And so you don't control the impact of that journey. You control yourself, your health, your healthfulness in all ways. But do we have a friend in common? Barbara, do you know her? I know Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
I don't think I know Barbara.
I think you must know her because she says, hi, John. Good to see you. But so, my friend, I just want to offer you this. Like, you don't control that you may have hurt your daughters through the divorce. Like, you don't control that. But like, so what do you do now? How do you show up for them now? And how are you showing up for them on their journeys, not the journeys you want them to have, but the ones that are meant for them in this life?
So I think, you know, well, I don't think I know like everything. So I still show that love to their mom. Like, thank God, because she's such a fabulous woman. We have a very close relationship, you know, so even in the divorce world, Antonia had one graduation party. She had one birthday party. She has one birthday dinner. Like, we still do everything together. Her mom and I get together, you know, her husband and I, you know, we get together, we get along. I'm trying to show that love for their mother on a daily, constant basis. I try to do that consciously and intentionally, and a lot of it comes naturally. For them, I just want to be there for them. Like, I want them, you know, you're right. Like, life is a beautiful marathon. But I want, you know, for those of you that understand running, you know, there's someone that paces you, you know, someone that runs by besides you and make sure that they pace you. And life is a beautiful marathon, and I always want them to know, like, I'm pacing them the entire way. Like, I'm always there for them. And that's all that I can do. And just love them unconditionally, and show that unconditional love that my parents showed me and my father continues to show me. Champion for them, advocate for them, be their biggest cheerleader, be their biggest fan, and do whatever I can to remove any obstacles that might be in their way. And I'm starting to get beyond that feeling of the guilt that we're talking about, that guilt that I carry with me about, you know, what sins of mine have now strapped them with life difficulties that if I would not have sinned, they would not have. I'm starting to get past that guilt, and agree with what you're saying. Like, their life is a beautiful journey, and I just have to be there for them, and they have to know that I got their back 110%, no matter what.
And your babies know that.
Yes.
Your girls know that.
They do know that. Yes.
Okay. There's something else that I want to talk about, but I want to do this activity first because I always wind up running over and I have to get off at 6 because I have another meeting that I have to do. So I didn't tell you about, so surprise. So we're going to share 5 things, and I invite everybody that's watching in the comment section to share 5 things that you are really proud of. But these are things that you're proud of that you have done or that you are. They're not things that like, I'm so proud of my kid for XYZ. No, I'm so proud of my school. No, like, these are 5 things that you have done that you know have impacted. Because what my goal with this time is that we can honor ourselves and celebrate each other. And so you and I are going to share 5 things, and I invite anybody who's watching, please, I want to see your 5 things, and I'll share them up on the screen. So, John, do you want me to go first?
Yes, please, because this is going to be It's going to be super difficult for me.
I know that I do this every show, and then you think that I would prepare and have my 5 things done. Okay, so let me see. So the 5 things that I'm really proud of. Okay, let me see. Well, I'm going to say the one of the things that I'm really, really proud of is the relationship that I have with my ancestors and with my grandchildren. And so that story that I told earlier about the clock yesterday, like having that connection with Luna and that connection with my abuelita to really like be in that moment as Luna and I were winding up my abuelita's clock. I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of, so I'm going to make this a number 2. I'm proud that people recognize that. And I think that because I talk about my ancestors, I talk about the importance of who I come from and where my life beyond me is going, that inspires people to do the same. And that's very serious and grounding to me. that happens. So number 3, I'm really proud that I'm really focusing on drinking my water. I get dehydrated. This should already be gone, but that's okay. Like I'm gonna get it done. But this is my second water for today. So I'm proud of the steps that I continue to make towards my health. Number 4, let me see. I want to pull something out that's new. Oh my goodness! Finally. So I as an older person, have started like getting into art and into sewing and stuff. But I finally this weekend I got a sewing project done, and I have not sewed in months. And I have been missing my sewing. I've been missing like my machine. Like I've been missing just the whole process. And so like doing that this weekend, I'm super, super happy. And then number 5, the other thing that I'm really proud of, I'm also a reader. But because some of the work that I do is reading for a publishing company, I get like tired of reading. But I got a book, and it's like a book for fun that I'm reading. So I'm glad that I'm carving out the time to do that. So those are my 5.
Okay. So I think the first thing that I'll share is I started this personal running journey March of last year during the pandemic because I could no longer go to the gym. Today, on March 13th will mark a year that I've continued that journey. So that would be 12 months of running outside and making that commitment to myself. I'm proud of that. I was in a meeting today. So back in 2015, a colleague of mine, we brought Padres Comprometidos to our community. And this Saturday will be the 8th cohort graduation ceremony of that program that is now being led by parents. And it's something that started in a school that I was a principal at with 2 parents. And they're now on their 8th cohort 6 years later. So that experience, super proud of that. On the nutrition side, which I don't know how nutritious this is, but I've begun this fast. And I am now fasting from 8 p.m. at night to 4 p.m. the next day. And the benefits of that fast in that 4-hour eating window, I'm more alert. I'm sleeping better. Like it's a testimony, like it works. So what is that? Is that 3?
That's how long have you been doing that? Like, yeah, that's 3. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that now for 30 days.
Wow.
Lost 12 pounds. And yeah, like testimony believer. So is that 3? That's 3.
Yeah, that's 3.
A 4th thing that I'm proud of. Sheesh, is so hard. I'm proud of the work that I do. I love being in education. I'm proud of the work that I do because it's service without wanting or expecting anything in return. And to me, I think that is the most beautiful service that you can ever give. So that's the 4th. And the 5th thing, I'm just really proud of all the relationships that I have with my friends and family. I am just blessed. I think of all the advice that my parents have gave me, my mom have gave me about surrounding the environment that I put myself in. I think I've made some pretty damn good choices in surrounding myself with good people. And I'm just really proud of the relationships that I have with those that I encounter on a daily basis.
Well, and to have those, it's because you're equally as good. And that's
I try.
Proud of, is that you are so good that those people would be willing and to show up in your life the way that you show up in theirs.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, Madi. I always try to make more deposits than I do withdrawals in those relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
And evolution, the evolution of self is getting to that place where it doesn't matter. If you need a withdrawal, then you withdraw as much as like
maybe overdraft.
yeah, go into overdraft. Okay, so this was the last thing. I'm glad that we have some time that I wanted to talk about. So because you had such beautiful energy. So we met through the National Institute for Latino School Leaders. So you're in Ohio, I'm in San Diego. Why in the heck would we meet each other, right? And so Unidos US, which is formerly the National Council of La Raza, Dr. Felisa Ortiz Licon started this program. And I believe the first group was in 2012. And I was a part of the second group, the second cohort. And there are now, I believe in April, there will be over 80 people that have graduated from this fellowship that have completed it. And this fellowship is really like this network, that opportunity is the reason why I became I really started getting involved in policy and education. But not only that, it's why I'm able to do the work that I do every day. I'm at the National Parents Union because of the network and the work that I did with Unidos through the NISL. And so much gratitude for that. But you started talking about it. So I want to hear about you and just what you've gained from the experience.
Yeah, so I was part of cohort 5. And we began right after President Obama signed ESSA into law. So we were part of the implementation and the advocacy of, the final regulation of all of that. And so learning how to write policy memos, just meeting incredibly brilliant people. But to that point that you just made, those journeys through my professional life, and being able to have an assistant superintendency and a superintendency was a lot through that affiliation and the work that I've done through NISL. And we shared this backstage, but, I have 2 master's degrees and a superintendent's license, and I have personally gained more professionally and personally from the affiliation through NISL than I have through any of those graduate programs. It's an amazing program. It's catapulted the work that we've done, Padres Comprometidos being one of them. I'm super indebted to Felicia and Unidos US. 80 people, the legacy that she's leaving that's amazing. Talk about legacy, that is just amazing. And the work that we do and the people that I've met, it's just been phenomenal experience.
Well, because it's because of that you're on Dad to Dad. It's because of that you have you have a lifelong brotherhood with Tim and with Jose. Because otherwise I think the chances of having met would be, I don't know how it may have happened, but it's really because of that direct connection, that we're both on this platform right now. And so
absolutely.
I think that speaks to me to a couple of things. One is how important it is to build community and community focused of like-minded people doing like-minded work and having like-minded impact, like this desire for impact. And I think also, the beautiful thing that they do in the fellowship is they make it so easy for the participants. They make it so, they pay for your travel, they pay for your hotel lodging, they provide the training, they provide the support in order for you to really do the work. And I think that's this is a good lesson for us. And if you really want people to really have this input, you got to give them all the tools and all the ways and provide as much of that support as possible. And also making sure though that you have the people and you're able to identify the people that are really in the work for the right reasons and that can turn around and have that impact and do the work that's asked of them,
Yeah. And it can't be done in a silo. So the fact that Tim and yourself are part of the National Parents Union, we talk about communities and we talk about professional learning communities, and none of those things are possible and will have the impact if it's not about parents, right? And if it's not in that partnership with parents. So taking everything that you've learned as an educator to the National Parents Union and having them and being a part of that organization, what a beautiful organization. And any success that we've ever had in any building or district that I've been a part of has not been absent of a parent partnership. It's like, I'm honored to be on any platform from the National Parents Union. So yeah, thank you. Thank Tim. Thank Carrie.
So that's my bell because I got to go to my next meeting. I am so glad that we were finally able to make it to have you on with me. I love you so much, my friend, and I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing your 5 things and allowing us to celebrate with you and celebrate who you are.
No, it's an honor. I was delighted. I was excited, and it's always a pleasure. I love you, Madi. I thank you, and anytime that I have an opportunity to experience your energy, I walk away a better person. So I appreciate you.
Hashtag same. Hashtag same. So everybody, please don't forget to join Dr. Anjali this Friday. I know that she's going to have an amazing guest, an amazing conversation, and I will see you next Monday. Please know that you are loved and cared for us always. Good night, everybody.